The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody to our today's webinar, which is today more an open hour than a webinar. Please also welcome my two colleagues, Janina and Martina, and we three of us will try to give you some information of upcoming versions and of course open hour, trying to answer all your questions, what you actually have. Yeah, let's shortly step through the contents a bit more detailed. So the first part will be what's new Pandoras Box version 6.4.3. Going over to having some views on the roadmap for Pandoras Box, what's coming up there. And then we will have a look at the new or the upcoming Widget Designer version, and finally answering all your questions about whatever we have. We will do a short question and answer session after each point. So if you have questions for these dedicated points, then feel free to put these questions in the question box in your GoToWebinar tool. And yeah, for the final round, we're looking to try the voice feature of GoToWebinar. So we haven't tried so far, so that's a test balloon today. Maybe we try that with you together. And yeah, I think we're good to dive into the first part. That's Martina.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. Yes, we will have a look at the new features of the Pandoras Box version 6.4.3. It's currently not a beta version, so let's see when we will going to release it as a beta or as a release version. What I can show you already today in the version that I have is we have done a lot of stuff with views. So we have included now a view bar that shows you 7 new views that you can click and access them quite fast. So you can toggle between different views of Pandoras Box easily. We are also introducing partial views, and partial views are saving sub-views. I will show you later what that exactly means. And we are also allowing to export and import views or sub-views. So this is all to the view part. And then I have 3 more smaller things. The inspector now is showing the chroma subsampling information when you select live input. We have 2 new defaults. The first is regarding the pre-roll stuff, and the second for image sequence import. And the last one is multi-selection. We are now allowing it in image sequences and on sites. I will show you now the new interface. This is our internal version for the version 6.4.3. This is how it looks like when you open it. So as you see, I will just hide this away. As you see, the inspector has now gone to the right side of the screen and takes more space here. So all the information that is in here, you will see it right away, and there's no need anymore to take the scroll bar down here and look at the information down there. Yes, the new view bar is located up here. And the first view that you see here is the Essentials view. This is what you see right now. This is our new default view. If you now click, for example, on Content, you will see that the layout has changed. And we show you the tabs that are most important when you work with content. So when you drag content from the Assets tab over to the project, you are most likely, you want to see the thumbnails here. And we have included the file browser. And of course, the inspector is important. The sequence and the devices tree, and that part of the work is not so important, so it's smaller. Just to give you one example, the other ones are the same. I will just show you one, the last one, for example, the floating one. Here you see that those panes are now breakout panes, so you can move them around. For example, you can, if you have a second screen, you can put the preview there to have a larger preview. And this part is very important to drag content over there. As you see, I just need to click once and the view is toggling back. So this is very nice. As I said, we also included partial views. In the project tab over here, you see all the 7 ones that are included up here. Let's say I wanted to save that I have here a second sequence. So I just create a second one. I select it. Now I have sequence 2 selected. And let's say I have here 2 servers, something like this. And from the first one, I want to hide those 2 tracks. I hide them. So now I have created some new stuff here, and let's say I want the configuration window over there. If I now want to save my custom view in that part, I can, as always, make a right click on the views folder and say create view. And I can name it. And what you are now seeing is that per default, I have the 4 subviews, they are called. So everything that I have changed right now in my interface is saved to this view. What I can also do is, let's say, for example, I have here now sequence 1, and let's say the third one is hidden. What I can also do is I can say create in the views part, create partial view. And now it asks me, what do you want to save here? And in that part, I can say I only want to save the sequence and the device tree, and nothing that is related to the preview and the layout. The layout is saving which tabs are selected and how big they are. So the arrangement, the size, whether it's a breakout pane, which tab is selected, all that stuff is saved in the layout stuff. The preview saves everything that is in the preview, so which mode is selected, how many previews have I selected in here, which cameras are assigned to the preview. That is all saved in here. The device tree saves which layers or devices and which sites are hidden or shown. And the sequence is very easy. It simply saves the sequence ID that is loaded in here. So in this new partial view, I want to save 2 subviews, which are device tree and sequence. So now I say, okay, dev tree plus sequence. And if I now double click on the unnamed, I see here my site number 3 and sequence number 2. And now I can also, for example, double click on the sequence, and it applies the sequence, sequence number 1. And for the device tree, now the site number 3 is hidden. And the same thing I can do with the one that is with the let's call it the full view that I have saved before. I can just apply the subviews in here as well. So this device tree, my site number 3 is here again. The 4 default views have only the layout in there. So whenever I apply those, nothing is changing in my device tree, in my sequence, and in my preview. And so if I do this, for example, I apply it, you will see that still sequence number 2 and site number 3 are visible in here. The third feature.
Apply those. You can also apply those views customized to the view bar, isn't it? Or was that a point later for you?
No, I can right away show it in here. So if I want to, I can make here a add to view bar, or I have not tested this. Yes, it works. I can now drag it in here. This is a very, very new feature. I think it was last night
Yeah,
when I put it in there.
I think
The
also a right click on the view bar is possible when if you can try it.
Yes,
Yes.
that is the third option. So when you say here add, you can now select here. I find this a little small, to be honest. I find the drag and drops pretty cool. Yeah. So if you say here now unnamed, you see now the new arrangement in here. And even if you have lots of views and you have it smaller, it would then show you here arrows, and you can then select and scroll through there. So you can put all your views up here and select it from here. The last feature, what we have done with views, is that you can export them. So for example, if you make here a right click, you can now say export, which will then ask you where do you want to save it, and it will create a PBV file. So you can save it, for example, to a USB stick, and later in a new project, you can then say import by clicking on views and saying import. So you can take your custom views with you and apply them to all your shows if you want to. What is exported, however, is only the layout part. This because this is like the most important thing. Otherwise, we would need to check all the time whether the sequence ID that is saved in here is is already part of your new project, and same with site IDs and layer IDs, etc. So it doesn't really make sense to export those ones. So we decided to just give you the most important subview, which is layout view. So far to the view stuff. Thomas, do you think I've forgotten anything?
No, I think you covered it. Well, it's new for us too, so it's sometimes hard to not.
Well, I heard that you are the one who pushed this feature the most because you really, really wanted it.
Yeah, I'm glad to have the more default views in there. That was my main point, to get it in
Okay.
there.
So these ones up here. The
Yeah,
ethics
the view
and
bar was
the...
not my intention idea. So this is not my idea. My idea was to have multiple views in there. But however, now we have a view bar.
The other smaller things that I wanted to show you, the first is since the last version or the version before, we allow to have another chroma subsampling for HDMI cards. So now we are also showing it in the inspector if you select it. As I don't have a server right now here, I just show you a screenshot. This is how it would look like. So now it tells you here the subsampling information. In that point, it's a 4:2 resolution. So this is how it looks like. The other things were new defaults. So when you, for example, let's say I wanted to import image sequences, I can now say here 1, 2, 3 clicks, and all of them should be imported. So this is the first new feature, import this image sequence. This allows it now for all 3 of them, and the new default number is now 50. It was 25 before. So now I can just say yes, yes, yes to all 3 of them, and now I have here 3 image sequences. If you, however, want to go back to 25 or want to go with 60, you can go to configuration, resources, and I'm not seeing it. Here we go. The framework here. So if you want to change it, you can do this here, and you can also uncheck here whether you want to see the pop-up or not. So if you import really a lot of them, you don't want to hit enter all the time. You might want to uncheck this option to hide the pop-up. Another new default is for pre-roll. So if I just take this container here and select it, you will now see that the pre-roll time is now 2 seconds. If you have never heard of pre-roll, it's just the time when we start to load the content. So in that case, 2 seconds before the now pointer enters the container, it will start to load the content of it already. So asking the hard drive, yeah, give me the content so I can start to load it already. Of course, this is only when the now pointer enters or goes towards this container. So if you jump from a later time into the container, obviously the 2 seconds cannot be applied. But in a normal show environment, you normally go with now pointer forward. This pre-roll time is now also available on live inputs. So if I don't want to take the webcam right now, I'll just show you it with this Streamix. So I select here live input. Here we go. Now we see here also the pre-roll time is 2 seconds. Of course, you can just change it to any other time or go back to 0 if you want to. The multi-selection that I've shown you here with the image sequences is also possible with sites, which was not possible before. So if I make a multi-selection by pressing the control button, I can now make one right click and say toggle preview, and both of them are in preview now. I think new defaults, chroma subsampling, multi-selection. That was the 3 smaller things I wanted to show you. Yeah, now would be a good time if you have any questions regarding the new features. Or Thomas, would you like to?
Sure. There's actually one question, not really about the new features, but about pre-roll in general. Sorry. How will pre-roll work in multiple sequences? You want to answer that, or should I go for that straight?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll try to. So the pre-roll is a layer-based thing. So the sequence is not really involved in the pre-roll thing because all the layers are available in all the sequences. And so the pre-roll is a layer or is attached to the layer. So if you use that layer in sequence 1, the pre-roll is working with sequence 1. If you play layer 1 with sequence 2, it's working in sequence 2 with that same pre-roll. So the pre-roll is always together with the layer, not with the sequence. I hope that answers your question. Thank you for that. Any more questions so far? I think not for now, so we can maybe move on with the next topic.
Thomas, I forgot to. I forgot one point because I just got the information shortly before we went into the webinar. We are working on including the audio information again. So I think 3 versions before we said that QuickTime files. It was when we introduced the new, how is it called? That we allow new formats for the QuickTime. And since then, we have said that the audio part is well excluded, that we cannot play it back for muxed QuickTime files. So now we are working on it that we can play it back again. So now it will not say anymore that the audio is not included. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
So if you want to continue with the other features that we are currently working on, but that will not be part of the 6.4.3, but for a later version.
Exactly, that's on the roadmap. So I want to talk about that now. We have a big feature coming up, and we're working on it for a long time already. And this is a complete overhaul to the render engine. So it's, let's better say, a completely new render engine, which will be in the, I don't know yet if it's the next release or if there is one more release in between, but for sure this year we want to release Pandoras Box with a complete new render engine. And Martina, if you can share the PowerPoint file for that so that people can see the points. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry.
Oh no, it's all fine. We're doing it live. So what's coming up with the new render engine? That's, for the first thing, it's DirectX 11 support. So this render engine is then not using DirectX 9 anymore, but we change it to use DirectX 11. So much possibilities with this new DirectX support. This means, for example, we will add DBX format playback. So there is a format called DBX. It's used a lot in between, and with the change to the new engine, we will be able to play back these files. Well, and with that comes the 10-bit color depth and all the different color formats things. So we will be able to use 10 bits per channel, per color channel. And maybe you've seen some demos already on our exhibitions. We showed some very early versions of that feature already on ISE, for example, and on, I don't know which other exhibitions we had last year. But there we showed already the alpha version of that. So we are still working on that, and we are looking forward to release it this year. What else? Of course, performance boost. It's not tested yet, of course, but we expect that the performance will be again a bit higher. So the 64-bit version, we can use more memory now, and with the DirectX support we can use the graphics hardware better and push it more to the limits again. And yeah, so we expect a performance boost there too. And of course, all this, especially the DirectX 11 support, opens a lot of new possibilities, which all comes with the DirectX 11 things. So yeah, it will be interesting what we can do there. And yeah, there are more things, of course, on the roadmap, but yeah, I'm not allowed to speak about that yet. But maybe this is a good point to mention our upcoming event next year. And oh, we wanted to do that later, right?
Yeah, we wanted.
Well, yeah, let's push it to later. So there will be an event, and speaking about new features, this event is a very good one. So, but we will talk you through that later. Yeah, that's everything I have to say from my side for the upcoming roadmap. So not.
Tamis, do you know whether the DirectX 11 is it still version 6 then? We are not working on.
This is still version. The DirectX will still be version 6.
Okay, so it will be included for all the people that bought
version 6.
This
exactly.
was
So
a question.
yeah, we expect it maybe this summer. I don't want to say too much, but because you know you always have some delays in developing things, and yeah, we're sorry for that. So we try to move forward as fast as we can, but we also want to make sure that it's stable, that it's good, and you're not running into any issues as far as we can do. All right, so let's have a look into questions.
There was one related to the DBX format. To be honest, I haven't really heard anything of it, so I can't really answer whether how it's compared to Hub.
But,
well, I can say something.
Yeah, that's great. Janina, go for it.
Well, as far as I know, HAP is not capable of displaying or encoding 10-bit values yet. Maybe someone's going to introduce it. So the question is DBX better than HAP? And the answer is they are not comparable, actually, because HAP you would use for 8-bit and DBX for 10-bit in that case. And 10-bit will definitely be a lot less performant than any 8-bit codec will be. So yes, we will see. As soon as we will have the DirectX 11 version out. We're also going to try to update our performance charts so that you can compare the performance. But what I've heard so far is that DBX is a very performant format for 10-bit codecs.
Yeah, that's I think the correct answer. I don't know really, but I wanted to say more or less the same about that. So I also think it's related to the 10-bit things and the and what you can save in those file formats. Yeah. And the other question, I think we talked about that already. So yeah, DirectX upgrade should be, as far as I know, with version 6. So there's no need to pay for the upgrade if you are already owner of version 6. So yeah. Okay. Any more questions, maybe? Or we, if not, we can go further, and Janina can talk us through things of Widget Designer development.
Yes, indeed. Let me take over the presentation.
Oh yeah.
This one. Okay, so you should now all see my empty What's New Widget Designer presentation. And actually, there's not that much going on in Widget Designer right now. There's been a couple of things reworked that were really work intensive, but I'll come to that. Don't me.
Well, the
Okay,
fidgets
so
are a big feature.
they are a big feature. But most of the points that we have now are possible because we did in a previous version introduce the new devices handling. So what we have added again, finally, is the jog shuttle and fader extension. So if you ever used those additional fader boards, you can now use it again in Widget Designer 2. And in Pandora's Box, I'm going to show an example of that. So check out the devices, and there are a couple of things added. The Terra and the Phoenix device have been there before as well, and the event listener, but now we can add a jug shuttle device over here. You can only connect one to your computer, so there's no ID or anything. It's just a jog shuttle, and the same goes for the fader extension. If you open the settings, you get the same dialog as you had in previous versions, just a bit nicer, and you can assign functions to the faders that are not that are outside of Pandora's Box. So if you click on one of those buttons, you can enter a press script and also a release script, because those are buttons that you can press and press for a while. And you can do that for every single button, and the play button, of course. And if you have the faders, you can click on one of those and assign a special device for Pandora's Box. The cool thing, the newer thing, what we did not have before is the possibility to script that. So if I now, okay, over here, if I now say something like this, my fader1.value equals, and now I can select my jog shuttle, and I have a couple of members. So you can see over here, I can access the button states, the faders, and you can do something like this, get fader value. So you have two faders. Now let's say ID number 1. I do not have a device connected right now, so the value I will get as a return is 0. That's the default. And if I test that, I can now read out the fader values from the jog shuttle and also the fader extension and script with it. That's cool. That did not work before. Okay, and of course, when you are creating an event listener, you can now select the jog shuttle and, well, quite a lot of things. So whenever a fader value is changed, you can execute a script, which is also very nice because you can now, let's say, replace a node or something like that. If you had a jog shuttle input node and wanted to link that to a fader, well, you would have to set up a node system, but with the event listener, you could use the fader value and just say my fader1 dot value equals my value. The little value variable that you see over here, that's the one over here, you should or could already know from, for example, the ActionScript node, where you just have your input trigger, and whatever the trigger was, even if it's a button state, okay, that one doesn't have one. So if it's the connected state, that returns you a Boolean value. So is it connected? Yes, no. Then you can use your trigger value in your script as a local variable. If you don't know that yet, check out the manual for the event listener. Okay, and if you would apply that, and if I would now move my fader, I would update my Widget Designer fader with that as well. Nice. The next point is the new spider device. So same same topic. You find it either here in your devices tree and create a new spider device, or you can just simply click on the little plus symbol over here and add a new spider device, which is really nice because you can also connect several spiders. All you need to do here is configure your IP address and apply, and then connect to a spider. The great thing is now you don't need the spider node anymore to communicate with your spider. You can simply also use the spider object that was created and access a couple of commands from there. So whatever you want to do, you can now do it via scripting easily and nicely without having to set up a node. Keep in mind that not all of the commands that the spider provides are integrated over here. So there might, if you find something that you want to do not over here, check out the spider API manual, and maybe you would have to use a regular UDP connection to it to access that. But I think 90% of everything that you need on a daily basis is in Widget Designer now. If you feel like you need something that is not in there, feel free to send us a mail and request a new command. Okay.
Cool.
I just wanted to add a very small thing to this what you've just shown. The spider members that you've shown, they,
Yes.
as you see in the script assistant, there's no description yet. We are working on that. It is also displayed in there. However, it is in the manual. So whenever you wonder how exactly to use this one command, you can check it up. You can look it up in the manual, and you see a description there with a small example. Just as.
Perfect.
Cool. Great features there.
That's awesome. Yeah. And another point of the same category is new Fidget integration. Finally, we have added, for example, the Wind Hub module so that you can now access a large variety of other modules. Before, if you have ever worked with fidgets, we only had those interface kits, the RFID, and one or two other devices. And there's a lot more out there now, but I'm not going into much more detail now because I'm going to hold a complete webinar about that next Friday. So keep posted. And one more thing that will make JSON handling with Widget Designer a little more easier now is a couple of new JSON commands. if I now type in JSON, you can see that there are many new commands that you can select from. There are two that I would like to show you more in detail, which is JSON load file to variable and XML file, for which I have prepared two buttons. I have also prepared two JSON files. I'm going to show you how they are configured in a minute. So this one loads the JSON file. I can simply access JSON file, and my debug logger shows me what's in the JSON file. Let me show you what I did there. And maybe scroll that a little so you can actually read it. Okay, all I do is I have two different variables. One is a string, one is a JSON, because this command is very flexible. You can either enter a JSON variable or a string variable as receiving elements. So it works for both. And then all you are going to do is you are loading a file path. That's the file that I just selected with the dialog. Write that into my variable, and this is what comes out of it. This is the JSON format. So I now have a nice little JSON variable that provides all the JSON members, like setting and retrieving values and all that, right from a file. And if you want to have it as a string, this is what the string would look like. That's a pretty long one. And this is what the JSON file actually looks like. So what we just had. A little more interesting is the XML command, which does the exact same thing. I use the same syntax, just these two variables are different. And if I execute that, and I take the XML file, always those dialogues in the front. So this is what the XML file looks like. This is a regular XML syntax. So with my starting and my end points, more or less, and the tags that I can assign. And that is transferred into JSON syntax. So this is a valid JSON variable. I have here my root, which is my root over here, a person number 1. And if you want to take a look at the ID over here, this is creating a list. So and my first list element is person ID number 1. And my second list element is person ID number 2. So if you have data in XML format, you can also load it in Widget Designer now in a JSON variable. Again, JSON format and string format, if that is what you would like. All the JSON commands that you have, everything that loads something in a JSON variable can also be loaded in a string variable. So you are maximum flexible there. And this is everything for now, new from Widget Designer. Are there any questions on the Widget Designer end?
Thank you, Janina. Yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. Actually, I can't see any questions for that. So we can move over to our open hour. So feel free to ask any question, and we'll try to give you a proper answer.
Did you want to try it with the audio?
Yeah, we can. So you can also use the raise hand feature from GoToWebinar, and then I will try, if you have an audio available, I can see that in my GoToWebinar tool there. So if you want to ask a question directly live into our webinar, that should also be possible. you can just use a raise hand feature, and I will try to unmute you, but you also can put the questions in the normal questions feature from GoToWebinar too. Oh, there is a question from Mayank, so I will try to unmute Mayank. Okay. Mayank, what's your question?
Hi. Has the official version of the 6.4.3 is on the site? Can be downloaded, or is it still release candidate version?
If I can answer this, this is not even yet a release candidate, so it's still work in progress. We are trying to get this audio feature in there so that we can play back demuxed QuickTime files as well, muxed QuickTime files as well. So we are waiting for the final go for that. So as soon as our test center has tested this audio feature, the view stuff and all the other stuff is tested and as far as we see bug-free. So we are waiting for the audio stuff, and as soon as this is done, we will probably release it as a beta or release candidate.
Okay. You always show us the suites, and then you say you have to wait for some time.
Well, this is the format we're doing with. So the open hour is a preview for upcoming features, right? So this is a preview.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
For that.
So we have another question. Any upcoming HDR support? Sure.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the problem with HDR is that there are so many different standards out there, like HDR10, HDR10 Plus, Dolby Vision, and a couple of minor formats. And every display manufacturer is able to support one or the other, and they are all very different, more or less. As far as I know, all of them require metadata. So this is where Pandora's Box becomes problematic, because in principle, you can display HDR content nicely when you have a 10-bit codec, but there is no metadata in it, so you don't really know what the display does with what it receives. Pandora's Box does not support the metadata, so if you have a container like, for example, H.265, that does have metadata included, Pandora's Box will discard that. We will have to do some testings, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to do more information about HDR stuff, because that's a very interesting and a very complicated topic, and there's a lot you have to know to comprehend it. Yes, HDR will be feasible in a way, but we will all have to check out how that is going to work in the end with different output devices.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Janina. So I can see Mayank has another question, so I will try to unmute you again. There you are, Mayank, another question.
By mistake, it was pressed. I'm really sorry for that.
Was not. Maybe I just haven't have not make your raised hand going down again. So sorry for on my side.
Unraised.
Unraised. Yeah, I do unraise. Any more questions there? So far, not, as I can see. So that's the time for us now to have another announcement. I think you have prepared something in the PowerPoint, Janina, have you?
Well, not in the PowerPoint, but I have opened a browser. So what we are going to do is we are having another Christie Connect. We did that a while ago when we were still Kulaks, every 2 years, a big event where we invite lots of customers so we can actually connect, so we can exchange about projects we had and problems we had and all that in a really cool and open format. And we will finally be able to do that. It's going to be next year on the 7th and 8th January. If you are interested, just go to our website on the homepage. That's directly the first spot. look at the event, and go and register. There is no fee for everything, so you are free to just register and come over. Visit lovely Cologne in winter.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, and talking about upcoming features, this is the event for more of those, right? So we'll speak about features on this event for sure. Yeah, so if you're interested, check out the website and feel free to register there. There's another question coming in. It's a widget question. Control of external software like PowerPoint. That's a very dedicated
Relating
question.
to the command window focus, and now that I read it, I can remember that there was something with it, but I can't remember exactly what it was.
I would also have to check it, but I am relatively sure that the window focus is supposed to relate only to Widget Designer windows.
Ooh,
That it was, yeah.
I see.
And it's not going to set the focus of the computer on any desired application or any desired window, but only to window 1 or window 2 or how many ever windows you have of Widget Designer.
I see.
I think this is why it's called WD window.
Yes, exactly.
WD.
All right. So far, so good. So if there are no more questions, that's about this webinar. Yeah, feel free if you find some more questions after this webinar. I posted you some links in the chat, in the GoToWebinar chat, so feel free to send us an email, get to the phone support. Yeah, thank you for the PowerPoint. Yeah, you can find all these helpful information there. Maybe one last question. That's about the Connect. Someone of you able to answer that? Me is not actually.
Sorry, I'm looking for the command, but I haven't found any documentation yet.
Now there we go with some more questions.
Oh, the Connect, not the Connect.
Yeah, the Connect, Microsoft Connect, right? Okay, Martina's looking for that. The other question is, can we get Widget Designer projects used in webinars? Yes, we started that already. Oh, now I got the question. So you want I think to have the project files. We're not sure. Some of them are not. We are not allowed to share. Some we are. We looked into that. I don't know yet. Maybe you can drop us an email and we will find out if, or we will answer that then singular for every individual email. And maybe
I think it
send
also
this file
depends
or not.
which webinar it exactly is, whether it's a file
Yes.
from us or whether it's related to any other project. So if you're interested in one file, just let us know, and then the panelist will answer. Regarding the Connect question, Janina, do you know anything about the Connect 360?
Unfortunately not. I know that Widget Designer is supposed to support the older and the newer versions of Connect, but I do not know about the version number. So, and especially not in combination with Windows 10. It could be that the drivers and the libraries we're using are not suitable for Windows 10 there.
But you also don't know whether we have a Connect 360 in our office. as soon as we are allowed to go out again. Yeah, let's see whether. David, we are going to have a look in our support team whether we can test this for you, or if we find any other information, whether what Janina says is, and double check with our developers. So it would be cool if you could forward this again to our as a support email, then we can answer this.
All right. Another question. Control PowerPoint. Control PowerPoint. Can we send keyboard messages via widget?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
The remoting feature is very useful there. So for anyone who has never seen it, under connections and remoting, you will find this one. So if I open, for example, a TCP server on some kind of port, and I now connect with any kind of other TCP capable device. It could be a Crestron, it could be even a PuTTY application, or another widget designer on another machine. So if I connect that, I can send widget commands to this widget designer that are then executed. So I could send, for example, something like a keyboard key press command. If I have PowerPoint open, widget designer runs in the background and receives the keyboard key press command. It executes the command while still being in PowerPoint. So that would, for example, execute an arrow key or something like that, with which I can change the slides in the presentation.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Well, yeah, let's do one last. We have the hour is not full yet, so that's related to the former question.
Yeah, the VD focus one.
Yeah, we can talk about the focus one by phone or by email, however you want. So again, thank you all. Thank you, Janina. Thank you, Martina. And yeah, I hope to see you all next year on the Connect then. If we are allowed to, let's keep fingers crossed for that. Stay healthy. And hopefully see you in the next webinar too, in a virtual way. All right. You want to say anything, Janina, Martina?
Nope, I'm finished.
So,
all right.
it was a lot of fun. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.
Yes. Great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.